Welcome to the Ear to the Ground with the Grindstone, Episode 6. What a couple of weeks of music the last two have been, highlighted by Drayton Farley's 20 on High release, which came out yesterday, Friday, March 3rd. As most know by now, the album was produced by Sadler Vaden, Jason Isbell's guitarist in the 400 unit. He produced Morgan Wade's Reckless, and the two of them completely knocked it out of the park. After hearing the first single of Farley's album, Norfolk Blues, I was pretty confident that it would find similar success, and man was I right. Joined by other 400 unit members, bassist Jimbo Hart and drummer Chad Gamble, as well as guest vocals from Waxahatchee's Katie Crutchfield on Farley favorite Alabama Moon, the gang had absolutely made themselves a front-running candidate for Grindstone Album of the Year. Make sure you make it to a show soon because I suspect tickets may start getting more scarce after this amazing offering. In similar exciting news, the aforementioned Jason Isbell just announced a new album, Weather Vanes, and released a new single, Death Wish. The single's really good. It's definitely inventive and reminds me a bit of Dawes. It comes out on 6/9, and I'd imagine it'll be gunning for Drayton Farley, Pony Bradshaw, and a host of other excellent albums vying for the top spot for 2023. Willie Nelson just released I Don't Know a Thing About Love, the songs of Harlan Howard, which includes a version of The Streets of Baltimore. Whether it's Graham Parsons, Willie Nelson, or others doing it, the song is fantastic. Willie's a national treasure, and make sure you give this one a listen. Also out is Meg McCree's first offering, Is It Just Me? Really enjoying this one. It reminds me of great artists like Casey Musgraves. Make sure you give this one a spin. The band Dirty Grass Soul made a bit of headlines this past week, criticizing music publications for spending energy trashing mainstream country artists when they could be spending that effort promoting independent artists like themselves. They released a new single and video, Back to the Holler, which is a great tune. I'm looking forward to hearing more from them, even if they appear to be NC State fans like American Aquarium's BJ Barham. Go Hokies. Anyway, I figured I'd give them a mention as I'm digging their new one. It probably won't move the needle much, but any little bit helps. The Panhandlers, a supergroup comprised of Josh Abbott, William Clark Green, John Bauman, and Flatland Cavalry frontman Cleto Cordero, came out with the sophomore offering Tough Country. I somehow missed the first one, but have been a big fan of the guy's main projects, and this is a good one as well. Give it a listen. Mia Byrne released the next single, Come On, off her upcoming album, Grindstone Tomboy, which is expected out April 28th. I'm relatively new to Mia's stuff, but I'm digging what is out so far and looking forward to hearing the rest of the tunes. Wrapping up this Friday's activities, the Broken Spokes released a reworked version of Moved Into a Bottle. It's definitely good stuff. Check it out. I was down in Florida last weekend for a wedding, so I was unable to put out an Ear to the Ground episode. The wedding was great. Of a particular note was watching my girls do a line dance routine to Copperhead Road, which I had no idea was a thing. I unfortunately was not able to get video of it, but this is probably the last involvement they will have with Daddy's music for quite some time. Going back to the week of Friday the 24th, it was also quite prolific. In addition to two stellar releases, Lucera's Should Have Learned By Now and Muscadine Bloodline's Teenage Dixie, Ben Chapman and Company released Amber Sound Volume 1. I've been a big fan of Brent Cobb, and this definitely has a similar feel. For the folks in Wisconsin and nearby, he's playing at the Showboat Saloon on March 29th. I've never been, but the place has been loaded with shows, and I'm super jealous of my Twitter buddy, Old Hoss Vike, who's a good dude and has made it to quite a few shows there, including big Grindstone favorite Chris Knight. Make sure you give the Ben Chapman album a listen, hit the Showboat Saloon if you're in the area, and check out a few of my Chris Knight covers on my channel. Twitter homie, the Ferdy Main, came out with his latest single, She's a Hole, and it may be my favorite yet. Make sure you give it a spin. Matt Hillier came out with Glorietta last week, which is also another good one. Next week is shaping up to be another big week. Rich Henderson's Fallacies and Four-Letter Words is coming out, as is Liv's new single, You Say I'm Crazy, which she did with John Proudfoot. Both should be awesome offerings. Looking further out, St. Paul and the Broken Bones, featuring former 400 unit guitarist Broen Lawler, comes out with their latest, Angels in Science Fiction, on April 21st. Single C Star is currently out now. Jeff Tweedy and Rodney Crowell announced a collaboration, The Chicago Sessions, coming out on May 5th, which features the Townes Van Zandt classic No Place to Fall. In a press release about the album, Jeff Tweedy mentions, the way that Rodney writes is deeply connected to a classic era of country songwriters that I've always loved. In my estimation, it's as close as I can get to working with Townes Van Zandt or Felice and Boudleaux Bryant. People who crafted songs with a very specific sensibility, and I like being near that. The single, Everything at Once, is out now. The Grindstone is a huge fan of Townes Van Zandt, so I'm quite excited about this one. If you get a chance, check out a few of my Townes Van Zandt covers on my channel. Tommy Prine just released a new single, This Far South, ahead of the album of the same name, due out June 23rd. Should be another good one. In podcast news, Flea announced an upcoming podcast, This Little Light, which focuses on music education, falling in love with music, and the creative process. Margot Price is one of the upcoming guests. It should be an interesting one. Lastly, it wasn't a great week for influential musicians. Rest in peace to David Lindley. I was able to see he and Ry Cooder at the Newport Folk Festival in 1991. Also, rest in peace to Wayne Shorter, a player on some of the most important jazz albums, and whom Herbie Hancock said one of the few people who brought music to Miles that didn't get changed. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy. As always, like this video, follow me on Twitter, and subscribe on YouTube. Tell your family, tell your friends, make new friends and tell them. Make enemies and tell them too.